in amongst it for days on end
Yes.
and being part of that extent.
Yeah, that's a very apt word, actually. And this is something that I took away from the voyage, and I've said to a lot of people, and they were, you get funny looks when you say it, but what I did take away from this was a huge appreciation, and I was quite enamoured with krill. The blue whales are wonderful. They were spectacular to see, but seeing the size and extent of the krill, in terms of, just as So would have put it, their sheer numbers, their biomass, which is just, they outnumber humans on this earth in terms of biomass. I think Rob probably has the exact calculation for that if you're asking for both parties. So they're outnumbering us in terms of biomass, and then also just, I don't know, their control. So what I observed in this, because I was looking at this from a microbial perspective, it is my interest, it's what keeps me up at night. And krill are obviously macroinvertebrates, I can see them, so they get partition in that part of my brain. But to see when they were present, just how little of what I was wanting were present, I was astonished. And we were saying, if there were krill here, we won't have chlorophyll here, is what we were saying. And that being, obviously chlorophyll is the pigment inside the phytoplankton. That's what we use as a proxy to estimate their abundance,
Yes.
or how many phytoplankton are there, as a very crude measurement. If krill were there was not much chlorophyll A, which basically means they are so efficient at devouring their prey.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's inside them.
Yes, and look, we have some beautiful photos of those too. Rob and I did some very preliminary experiments where I just turned to Rob and I said, the krill that you pulled up today, were they very green? And he's like, all the greenest. And yes, if you look inside their stomach, if you look inside their digestive gland, which is the large gland that you see quite clearly through their carapace, green if they've been feeding. And you see that in the measurements, or at least the preliminary measurements we have so far, is that there was not a lot of chlorophyll comparative to areas where there were not krill. So their control and their just must be a product of their numbers. It was astounding. It's incredible.
I think they're an inspiration.
Yeah.
Their capacity to, just survive and to have evolved.
Yes.
To be what they are. I'm not worried about krill. I get a lot of questions from people about krill pills and all sorts of stuff, krill fishing.
Yeah.
And it has been on my mind for a while, because I know that the krill research is in fact funded by the krill fisheries.
Often, yes.
But I also appreciate that that's fantastic, because if it weren't the case, you'd have the ungoverned, you'd have the fishing industry ungoverned,
Yes.
and there wouldn't be safe catches estimated.
Yes.
And the only people really who can estimate a safe catch are the scientists, which is why we have camelard.
Yep.
So that's a tricky thing I've had to convince people of, that actually don't worry about the krill. worry about the humans. It's we
Yes.
who need to adapt our behaviours.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the one maybe snippet of worry I might have about krill is due to human behaviour.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about climate change in this exact moment. It is the current stocks of krill that we have, even the estimates that we're having right now, are looking at numbers. So these are numbers that are based on, so the abundance of krill are based on an environment and a world which has a diminished number of their predators. So in particular, whales.
Today's world.
Today's world, yes. So I guess what I'm saying is that if we start to hopefully reset the cycle, and there are some reports coming out that specific whale populations are increasing, there are some reports saying there are too many whales, that the number of krill that we're seeing, can it support a natural population of whales? A population which isn't being decimated by human fisheries. And obviously we may never have that, because they are some major fisheries for countries like Japan and Norway, for example. But if those numbers of whales increase, which don't get me wrong, I would love to see, that is my only worry for krill, is are the current stocks that the world is supporting, that our primary production is supporting, and this is maybe where climate change comes into it, because as we're warming the globe, we're slowing down the ocean currents, and the ocean currents are the major things that, particularly in the poles, support that upward force of nutrients, which allows a lot of productivity in the ocean. So that would be my only concern, is are the primary producers able to be productive enough for the krill, for the consumers, that are then ultimately being predated upon? And that's a balance, it really is.
I've had this discussion with Steve Nicol.
Yep. So someone probably far more informed on this than I am. Yes.
And he argues that in a world where there were many more whales, there were many more krill.
Yes, okay.
And the reason for that is the whale poo cycle.
Okay.
So it might be worth having a look at his book,
Yep.
Nichols's book,
Yeah, I will have a
because he
look.
explains that quite clearly. Because that's another argument that non-scientists often level at me, and I've had to find out how to answer that. If we have more whales, then they're eating all the food for krill, and isn't that bad for krill? It's like, nothing's that simple.
No.
But it is more complex because we also have ocean acidification, and I know that So and Steve have published papers predicting the demise of krill because the eggs simply won't hatch.
Yeah.
And they've done experiments to prove that.
Yeah. So I suppose that would be a major threat, and a more confirmed threat laboratory. I think I can't disagree with Steve. I think that the reason I'm tentative is because this idea of whales fertilising the ocean with their feces, we were really hoping to address that
Yes, I'm so told why that didn't happen, which is a tragedy.
Yes, it is an absolute tragedy, and I very much feel for the young scientist Abby Smith, who was the lead scientist on that. She did a fantastic job. She squeezed feces out of a freshly beached southern right whale carcass.
That must have taken forever.
Yeah, she has some brilliant time lapse photography. She went to such effort, and it's just a real shame that, I mean, this is how difficult what they do is that they are looking at trace amounts of metal, where if I were to touch the side of the ship, stick my hand in the bottle, that would be magnitudes more iron than what is found in the Southern Ocean waters. So, yeah, it's an incredibly difficult discipline they're doing, and unfortunately, with that experiment, yeah, some contamination happened, and we can't tell whether those results we saw were directly related to whale poo. We have some interesting findings from whale poo so far, the small amount of findings that we've gotten, and it definitely looked like there were blooms. So with the addition of whale poo, yes, we did see that things were getting greener and there was more growth, but we just can't tell at this point in time if it was natural, that we just gathered some water that was ready to bloom and then it did in the conditions we put it under, or whether the addition of whale poo really did elicit that. So hopefully Abby gets another try at that. I feel for her because it would mean another whale intestine to squeeze out, but yeah, hopefully that was supposed to be the experiment to really test that hypothesis, because at the moment it is a hypothesis, and I don't dispute it at all, because naturally in any environment, if you eat something, you pass it through yourself, there will be some remaining nutrients. And the quantities that whales eat, there must be a lot of nutrients comparative to a microorganism that's weighted. So,
now, this is a question that I don't know if you can answer, but it's the question of how much the fishing industry, including the King of Norway, who I know Steve has met personally, how intimately can these people who control the funding of this sort of research, how intimately do you believe they can engage with this story?
So wait, can you clarify?
I guess the motivation behind that question is, or the hope, is that if the King of Norway and his business outsiders can get excited as we are and care for the health of the whole system, including us, is that going to be a motivation for them to abide by the regulations and be part of, well, they already are financially part of regulating safe fishing limits and so on? Yeah. Or is that being idealistic?
I think it is being idealistic. Only because I have no doubt if anyone were to go down there, they will be absolutely floored by how amazing that environment is, and just life where you think there should not be life. It is incredible. We would cast a CTE one night and we were seemingly in the middle of nowhere, but some chin strap penguins penguins turned up and decided to inform us otherwise. So that there's just life everywhere, and it would absolutely enchant anyone that goes there. The reason, and I'm sorry, I'm a skeptic, is that there is profit, there is money to be made. And I think some people's motivations for that, I would actually love to see someone who was primarily motivated by money to see just how, if you put them face to face with krill, or allow them to have a blue whale breach right next to their boat, that's priceless. That is, and I guess I would hope that it would re-engage them into nature and realise the actual worth of that environment, because it is a absolute, you always hear that krill, a keystone species. That is a keystone environment in the Southern Ocean. It is so influential and so productive that to lose it, to have it damaged by something as short-sighted as monetary gain, I think that would be devastating. But
Devastating for the whole planet?
yes, I think so.
Because that's the missing link in a lot of these conversations.
Yes.
People think we're talking about just the Antarctic.
Yes.
And isn't that a beautiful holiday destination? And we don't lose
Yeah.
that because we're losing the whole business. But it's not often said, and certainly not understood widely, that the Antarctic ecosystem actually drives the global system.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess that's why I said keystone environment. We lose that, other environments will topple, they will collapse. Yes, it is a region where weather is made, whether directly, we experience it directly if a polar storm comes, if we get a southerly coming to Australia, but also indirectly. And that goes for both North and South Pole, where I know places like Norway, this last winter and summer, they've experienced temperatures which are, Oslo, their capital, has been hotter than mainland Greece, which is just unheard of. And that is an environment that relies on water, their vegetation, their livestock, their agriculture, everything relies on what they effectively say is that a place like Bergen experiences 366 days of rain. That's how much rain they get. So to have an environment that's adapted to that, and then this change that is happening, and surely in Australia we experience these things too as our weather's becoming more extreme. It comes from the poles. It really is, as you say, regulated by those areas. So yeah, devastating.
And natural cycles of change. How can you list some of those? I can think of one, the annual freezing and thawing of ice around Antarctica.
Yes.
What are some others that we can't so easily see?
I think so, and I've mentioned slightly is the Great Conveyor, which is the movement of the world's currents on a global scale, and it is ultimately, often you can see it portrayed as a two-dimensional drawing of this current going from the equator heading south, and if you're lucky it might be this warm looking arrow, red arrow, and then as it gets to the poles, you see it becoming a purple, and then it gets to the Antarctic and it's a blue. And that cools. In actual fact, when that temperature changes, you also get those dynamics of up and down. And all of that is driven by the difference in the temperature between the equator and the pole.
Is that the same as cold bottom water circulation?
Yes. Oh, wait. I should second guess myself.
My understanding of the cold bottom
Yeah.
water circulation is that when the ice begins to freeze, cold, dense, salty water drops and is drawn up and around.
Yeah. So in a sense that when it is colder, it sinks. Yes, 100%. Comparative to something that is warmer. With that added salinity that you're talking about, obviously anything that has more salt is more dense. But yes, that solely happens. And sorry, I answered far too prematurely then, Lisa, because I don't know too much about that in the Antarctic environment. I do know that in the Atlantic, there is a place called the Denmark Strait Cataract, which is, and I'm sorry to deviate away from the Southern Ocean, it happens in the Southern Ocean. But the Denmark Strait Cataract is the Atlantic, which pushes up. This is England, pushes past England, and then it goes to Iceland. Reaches Iceland, and then eventually, kind of hits bordering towards the Arctic, and then it hits Greenland, and it has nowhere to go but back down the west coast of Iceland. As it's gone further north and approached the poles, it's cooled, that body of water. Because of Greenland and Iceland, it has nowhere to go but itself. And this eventuates into the largest waterfall that we know of, which is the warmer water of the Atlantic meeting the colder water of the Atlantic, which just makes it plummet.
Oh wow, you're talking about underwater waterfall.
Yes. Yeah. So
Wow.
that exact same thing happens, maybe not as dynamic or abrupt in the Southern Ocean.
But all around the ice edge.
Yeah, there is vertical movement both up and down. And that larger great conveyor that I was talking about, it relies on up. What actually really dictates the up and down is warm water, cold water. So the warmer something is at the equator comparative to the cold, the pole, means that it moves faster. So as we're warming things, that difference between, for us, the South Pole and the equator, there's less difference.
Yeah.
So the speed, the actual speed of the Great Conveyor is slowing. It's not my field, so I'm by no means an expert, but this is something I learnt about very early in my education. And it would be one process that anthropogenic climate change is probably assisting or probably impeding rather. So yes, that would be one process.
So it explains it is also layering, like because there's less movement vertically, there's more layering happening, which is potentially taking us back to a primordial form of the ocean.
Yes.
Before we had any of these dynamics driven by ice
and
forming.
that's a really good point. And what that means, so if I talk in terms of being a bacteria or a phytoplankton,
Yeah.
So I like to think like krill, I like to think like bacteria. It means less access to nutrients. Where we have warmer water, we end up, as So says, we have stratification. And if there's a strip of warm water which is blocked just as these two water sources meeting one another, they never shall cross. That's the same thing on a horizontal plane or in depth. So all the nutrients, or a bulk of the nutrients come from below the water, the bottom water, which hits an upwelling and comes up. And there's this very sweet spot that we often see where those nutrients meet just enough sunlight, and that creates your purple patch for growth, where quite often it's found there is what is called a chlorophyll maximum, where phytoplankton start growing. As Zoe says, with that stratification that's occurring, those species that have adapted to that, so the species that we know of today, and many of them that biologists care about, some of the more charismatic things such as Emiliana huxleyi, the coccolithophore, it is something which likes nutrients and highlight environments. And if these two things never mix, then you will have less of them.
I see.
So, it would take them some time to adapt, which may improve productivity too. So.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you. Good chat with yourself.
Yeah. I just pray that all's worked. Yes, it did.